Before coming to UGA, I'd been interested in the trees around campus just because of how many times the campus had been rebuilt or repurposed and overall developed. Yet there's still so many beautiful trees, and I stumbled upon the Arboretum website where they had a tree walk, where they had designated trees that were special to the campus or especially unique one of trees. And I recruited some friends and decided to tell them about some of the trees, show them around, and find some of the trees myself. Magnolia macrophylla, commonly known as the big leaf magnolia. This particular tree is located at kind of between Boyd Graduate Research Centers and Adderhold Hall, right next to the forestry building actually. The Magnolia macrophylla is deciduous, which means that it sheds its leaves annually. The big leaf magnolia, uh, we know it's a big leaf not just because of its obvious big leaves, but because of its location. The other two subspecies are located in Florida and Mexico. This tree has the largest simple flower and leaf of any of the plants out of any plant in North America. The tree is some examples of the tree are so massive that they actually sag. The tree photographed is the Carpinus betullus, also known as the common hornbeam or the pyramidal European hornbeam in this case. It originates around Europe, but is also found in the Middle East. It generally grows alongside oak or beech trees, but is also found alone. It's deciduous, which means it sheds its leaves once a year, and it generally reaches around 50 or 60 feet. It's very regenerative, and it spreads pollen in large amounts about a year after it's planted. It's easy to spot because the leaves have very large veins. Um, Also, uniquely, this tree produces catkins, and not usually which droop alongside the leaves and are just like kind of seed sacs. Generally, males produce these, but in this case, the females do. The tree provides a hardy wood and is useful for firewood, and is also used for ornamental purposes because it's so strong, easy to plant, and generally isn't affected by storms and such. The case bearer moth loves to eat the leaves of the European hornbeam, and it's found some fame in Europe since it is the main tree. The Quercus fellows or willow oak is housed within the red oak family. It originates from the United States and enjoys living in areas superfluous with water, especially floodplains, streams, lakes. Areas with poor drainage do not suit the tree, so areas above the Piedmont generally, in more mountainous areas, you will not find willow oaks for the most part in those areas. The tree is of little concern from a conservation standpoint because it grows so fast and is resistant to so much. It generally grows to be about 80 feet tall, and it produces a lot of acorns, feeds a lot of birds and squirrels, so it's an important tree. Uh, but it takes more than 10 years or so for acorns to begin production. It's distinguishable from other oaks by its large drooping leaves, and it's popular for ornamental and horticultural use because it grows 2 feet per year. The tree pictured is the Amelanchier grandiflora. Grandiflora means large flower in Latin. It is a deciduous hybrid tree crossed between the Amelanchier arborea and the Amelanchier laevis. It is also known as the apple serviceberry in a more general context, and colloquially it is referred to as the autumn sunset serviceberry. It generally produces small white flowers and little red or purple fruits. Unfortunately, these photos were taken during the winter, so the tree is rather scant. This particular variety of tree is mainly propagated for garden use. It enjoys nearly full sun, but it can do with a little bit of shade. It does well in average soil conditions and only needs to be pruned once a year or so. This line of trees is planted next to the veterinarian school, and it's definitely worth checking out. The tree photographed is the Quercus glauca, or ring-cupped oak, or the Japanese evergreen oak. It is an Asian tree that is a part of the beech family. Although it's colloquially referred to as the Japanese evergreen oak, it is more commonly found in China than it is Japan. It generally grows to around 60 feet tall in the wild and maybe around 30 or 40 feet in urban areas. The flowers are catkins, which we talked about earlier, so just seed sacs, which are used to propagate um, further trees. This tree produces acorns with a characteristic ring bands outside and in, which is where the ring cupped oak name comes from. They're able to grow in North America anywhere with mild winters, and are quite uh, tolerant of any kind of soil type. The deers generally really enjoy the leaves, and the acorns are edible. So overall, it's a pretty wonderful tree that stays green all year round. The Castanea mollissima proves hard to take a photo of. It is the tree with the white flowers. Kind of hard to pick out, but it's back there. It's also known as the Chinese chestnut, and it's a species of chestnut. It's deciduous and grows to about 65 feet in height. Produces nuts as well as catkins for propagation. Remember, catkins are the seed sacs type of thing. It's an understory tree, which means that it's mid-successional and it prefers acidic soils. Chinese chestnut, as we're learning in the class, is far more resistant to chestnut blight than its American cohort. The blight began in the 1890s when Asian chestnuts were introduced to America and brought the blight with them. This quickly led to the virtual extinction of the American chestnut. Quite a shame, as you can see, this particular tree is quite beautiful, um, and it's a big loss of commercial usage in America since the American one is gone. But at least we have a couple Chinese chestnuts to grace our eyes on campus, or just one. The tree pictured here is the Ulmus parvifolia, also known as the Chinese elm. It originates from Eastern Asia. It was first introduced to England in 1794 and then to the Americas in the 1850s. It's a relatively small tree and is semi-deciduous, which means it only loses its leaves in the winter for a little bit, not the entire winter, only a week or so. It produces a samara fruit, which is a small dry fruit with a wing-like structure around it. It's often called a lacebark elm because of its unique overlapping and colorful bark, which chips off easily. The Chinese elm is highly sought after for its wood because it's considered the hardest elm of all. It's ubiquitous and is found on every single continent except for Antarctica. Yet it is able to withstand freezing temperatures. It's also popular in bonsai form, so overall it's a pretty iconic tree